4,000 years ago began a multi-million-dollar industry, not using gold, not using the currency we know today, but using spices. Spices have been a large industry for as far back as we remember, predating most written records of history. Excellent examples would be the birth of Christ. Frankincense and myrrh were given as kingly gifts. Spices have always been considered to be a gift and of great value. Today we're going to discuss how some general spices are made. So first, to understand how spices are made, we need to understand the exact definition of spices. Now, Professor Chan-Chalot defines spices as the non-leafy parts of plants used for flavoring and seasoning. What that means is that the leafy portions would not be included in this. Oregano, thyme, basil, and even cannabis oil now, as it's derived from the leafy portion of the plant, would not be considered a spice, but rather an herb. So going into how these spices are actually made, let's go into one that we would all commonly know. I am on the wrong computer. Chili powder. So chili powder starts with harvesting from the fields. They go ahead and harvest all of the chili pods and load them into a truck and bring them for sorting. Now, they unload them out into these bags, and then these bags are able to be hung. These bags are weighed. Each person in the compound is able to work a particular pile. So they base the piles on weight so that everybody is working the same amount. Once these have been separated by weight, individual people will go through and pick out and check for quality, as well as clean off. For example, with chilies, the cleaning would derive from removing the stems. The stems are not grindable when making chili powder. Next, they're left in the sun to dry. This process can take days, weeks, depending on the spice. Some even take months. Once they dry, they're put back into a pile again, and they should look like this when they're done. Notice how the pepper looks dehydrated and is now wrinkled. This means that it's ready to be ground. If it still had water in it, rather than creating a chili powder, we would create a chili mush. So they are very, very careful and go through all of these individually to make sure that there is no water left in these peppers. Next, they're bagged up and sent to the next step. The next step is a processing plant, generally located around the same facility. For this processing plant, they're all again sorted by hand to make sure during the transit none were damaged, bruised, or in some cases infested, depending on the area that you're in. They're poured into a mill. They're poured into a spice mill or grinder, depending on who you ask, and then made into a coarse powder. Now, they'll be piled up until all of the chilies are done. Once we have a pile of the coarse powder, it'll go back through the machine and be made into a finer powder, and they will keep repeating these steps until they have it at a consistency of dust. Once we're at this consistency, we have our final spice. This final spice is put in bags and shipped out. Once shipped, it's given to manufacturers who will then put their label on it and use it as their spice. Now, some interesting facts about chili powder in general, and the reason why spice is so important is, for example, in 1994, 181,856 tons of chili powder was made and shipped from India alone. Now, I did the math. That calculates to the weight of 90,928 2008 Mercury Grand Marquises. That is quite a bit of chili powder, and the estimated cost for that I wasn't able to get at the time because the conversion rate's different now. But it would have been astronomical, billions of dollars in just spice alone, and this is just one spice. India is actually the known provider for, I believe it was 17 spices exclusively out of the 70 that we produce in this currently. That's what makes spices so important. They are still a major form of currency, and for India, their primary export. If India did not have their spice industry, they would not have anything that they could live on. Their technology industry is not advanced enough yet in order to support the entire country and the entire population. They need the spice industry to supplement that, as do many Eastern cultures. Any questions?
What were your 3 points?
3 points were what a spice is, how a spice is made, and why a spice is important.
And these photographs, did they all come from one source?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
These photographs actually all came from one source. A worker recorded his daily life, and it was, you got to see the brunt of it. I got to watch a 20-minute video on how chili powder is made.
I'm not picking on you, but as I mentioned, the rules for using information for education have changed a lot. And I would say that your speech is too dependent on that one source, because most of your speech is from that one source. And also